from the MCPLive.tv studios, located in downtown Conroe. It's the Conroe Art League, live.
Hello, and welcome back to Cal Live, the show that brings you all you need to know about the Conroe Art League, its talented artists, and the wonderful people who make it such an amazing part of our community. I'm delighted to be here today. I'm your host, Susan Kromachis, and I am thrilled to have as my guest, Pam Markham. Pam is a very talented artist and member of the Conroe Art League. She actually lives in Huntsville and has come to interview with us today. She and her husband, Jeff, have a real estate company, Markham Realty, and they have raised two sons who are also in the business with them, and it's just delightful that she is able to do both her business and what we're actually focusing on today, which is Pam and her fabulous art. She's so skilled and enormously talented, and we're so thrilled to have you on our show. Welcome to our show, Pam.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
We are so lucky and thrilled that you came. So let's get started. Let's talk a little bit first about you. Where were you born? And did you grow up in Texas? How did you get to Huntsville?
I was born in West Texas, but my family moved to Conroe when I was a little bitty girl, and they opened the Dairy Queen here.
Is that right?
That's right. And so I kind of grew up with hamburgers and ice cream cones, and I graduated from Conroe High School, and I went to Sam Houston University for college, and that's where I met my husband. And we lived in a few other places, but we gravitated back to Huntsville. We liked the size of it. We liked the proximity to Conroe.
Yeah.
We liked the proximity to Houston. And we just thought it was a beautiful part of the state. So that's where we decided to settle and raise our children.
How wonderful. Well, so you've been now since 1981, it says on your website that you've been there since 1981.
Yes, we opened Markham Realty in 1981. We had a young family, and so we decided that that's what we wanted to do. I was a drama teacher before that, and when we moved to Huntsville, I started helping my husband. I've had my real estate license since I was a kid. My father and mother were in real estate here in in Conroe. And so it was pretty natural.
Yeah, part of the family.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how did you start your interest and passion for art, and where did that all come about?
Well, my mother and my father were very creative people. My dad could literally draw and paint with both hands.
Oh, wow.
And so I grew up watching him. He could do beautiful architectural renderings, and he did some development here in Huntsville. In Conroe. I keep thinking I'm in Huntsville.
Well, you were in Conroe. It's hard.
And my mother was very creative, and we used to do a lot of sewing. We would go into Houston to Sakowitz and places like that, and try on the fancy clothes and come home and draw them out. And my mother could make patterns, and so I learned from two really good teachers.
You had come from a very creative background.
I do.
Yeah.
My degree is in fine arts, but I have to say that most of the emphasis for me at that time was in the speech and drama department. And so I really didn't come to painting until I was in my early 20s. I started kind of fooling around with paint and color, watercolor, and I realized real quickly that I wasn't very good at coloring inside the lines. I just liked a little bit more freedom and a little bit looser approach to painting.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I got started. I kind of got away from painting for a while when I was raising my family and working in real estate, which is a very, very busy career.
Yes, I was going to ask
Yeah.
you, how did you balance both? And I guess you had to put it aside for a while when you...
Well, and when I did do art-related things, it was usually in the evenings. And so my initials PM, I started thinking that's appropriate. I'm a PM painter. And so that's kind of how it evolved. Yeah.
So how did you develop your favorite, I guess your favorite medium is oil now. So you transitioned you started in watercolor and then transitioned to oil. So that's been where you've stayed in oil.
Yes. I did work in pastels primarily for a long time. There was a lady in the Conroe Art League who was just precious, and she was talking to me one day about why I wasn't painting more, and I said, well, because the paint dries before I get back to it. I may have to leave and go show a house or go tend to a client. And it just is frustrating to me to come back and to it. And as I said, watercolor was my primary medium.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't working for me. So she introduced me to pastels.
Okay.
And she invited me to her home and set me at a table with some sanded paper and all these beautiful pastel colors. And then she left.
Let you go to it.
She left, and I still have the little painting I did. She had some fruit, and I set up a little still life and played with the paint, with the pastels, and that's got me started there. But over time, I have developed more of a passion for oil painting. I love to paint outside. So it was easier to carry a few tubes of paint than 50 pastels.
Sure. So now you're saying you love to paint outside. Are you now considering yourself more of a plein air paint artist, or is it back? Tell me about that.
It's a back and forth thing. I love to paint outside. When you go outside to paint, there is an immediacy. You've got to get your painting done, or at least get enough of a reference that you can take it and finish it later in the studio. There's just something about it, standing on the side of the road or on a mountaintop, or I've painted all over, and been to Europe to plein air paint, which was quite a great experience.
On a workshop, or?
Yes,
yes.
Really? I flew over and met people in France and in Spain to do some painting.
Fabulous.
And I love it, but I also love to paint in the studio. And I've learned that those two types, it's a totally different thing when you're in the studio, but they inform one another. I love to paint I love to paint people, not necessarily a portrait of a person. In fact, I don't do portraiture, but I do love to paint the figure. And it's hard to do that outside on location.
Yes,
I have,
yes.
but it's hard to do that. So I think I would be a mixture.
Right.
Yeah.
Is your studio in your home, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have a good place where you can, and even if you start a painting in plein air, then is it usually finished in the studio? Or you can't, or do you finish a painting? Can you?
It depends.
Okay.
If it's going along well,
You can.
I finish it
it.
in the studio. And one of the ones we're going to look at in a little bit is it was going along well. If it's terrible, I may just use it as a reference. I do take a photograph, but I've tried diligently to get away from relying on a photograph for my work.
And you're not really considering yourself realistic. You're more fluid and loose. So for you, it's easier to just be able to do those strokes.
And that was a real journey. I'm glad you brought that up, because for me, for so many years, I tried to paint exactly what I was looking at. And so I found myself just nuancing. Oh, this is a little purple and this is a little greener.
Yes.
And I was exhausted.
I can relate to that because I do watercolor and it's so hard to get just the right tone or make it as precise.
Exactly.
So going to fluidity is probably
Yes,
much
and
more relaxing.
I've had some really fabulous teachers. I've been really fortunate to have some really great teachers. And one of my teachers taught me very well. She said, Lois Graffel is her name, and she said, you know, it's not so much what color it is, it's the darkness or the lightness, the value.
The value. Yes.
So when I started thinking in those kind of terms, my work improved. And so, I mean, color is very, very important to me. But when I started thinking about how dark is this, how light is it, what color next to this would make this, you know, really jump forward or push it back. And so all of those things
are important. But you work with a full palette of colors.
I do.
Yeah,
I
which
do.
is wonderful.
Primarily,
yeah.
I do. There are times when I will limit my palette. That's usually when I am the painting's getting busy or my work is getting busy. Then the next time I may just pull out a few tubes of paint and work with more limited palette.
Oh, Pam. Do you have? Did you have a mentor or someone that you really felt was guiding you towards all this, or not, or anybody that really inspired you, or a favorite artist that you like to follow in your journey?
I like so many people. It's hard to say. I think my biggest inspiration might be my husband.
Really?
He has encouraged me to do this, and he keeps, I mean, he will we'll be driving down the highway, and he'll see something that he wants me to see, and usually he has a pretty good eye, and he'll do a U-turn and take me around so that I can photograph. So he's always been kind of pushing me along. I did add a huge studio, not huge, but like a 2-car garage size studio to my house, and I have wonderful lighting in there. And so my family has really been inspiring and motivating. My sons send me photographs all the time of things that they've seen.
Got lots of family support.
I do.
That's great. That's great.
As far as a particular artist, there's so many. Lori Putnam was a big influence on my work, and I studied with her several times. There's an artist, Desmond O'Hagan, who is in Colorado, who has had a big impact on me. He mainly works in pastel, and he uses big chunky pieces. And so that was good for me, because I realized, hey, you know, you don't have to have a pencil. You can be bolder and bigger. So.
Oh, I just can't wait to look at some of your work. Let's go ahead and look at some of your work. Maybe we see what our first piece is. Oh, look at this. I mean, that is just so great. Tell me about her. She's wonderful.
Well, this piece is called Cowgirl Moon, and she was so much fun to paint. This is oil paint. I used a medium called cold wax. It's just a medium. It's just a vehicle to help move the paint. But the beautiful thing about the cold wax is that you can scrape it off and get back in and get what you've painted before shows through. The paintings have a history. And that it's just so much fun for me. If you look at her pants, let's see if we can see those pants were in the very first layer of paint that I put on this.
So where did you start with her? How did you begin?
A very colorful, abstract underpainting.
Okay.
Very.
Okay.
And so then I didn't have a reference for this, but I had the abstract underpainting on there. And what I love to do, and it's kind of quirky, but I like to do the abstract underpainting, put it up on my wall in my studio, and I look at it. And I'll turn it sometimes, and eventually something will start to appear to me, in my mind.
So you didn't start out with her as a subject matter on that
No.
painting. You started out
No.
with an abstract background.
Correct.
And that's really interesting. That is really fascinating. You know, most people have in mind what it is that they're going to paint before they paint it, but it comes to you.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And I love the figure. And so inevitably, when I do these abstracted backgrounds, I start seeing a figure. And so first of all, I saw the red hair. There was a blob of red paint. And I thought, And then, I know.
No, I think it's great how it evolves.
It's just, it's such a fun thing to do. And so, but I may turn it, and look at it from a whole bunch of different ways. But over time, I'll begin to see something emerge. And so I started with her head, and then I saw her legs. And the first rendition, her leg that's up on the bucket was out, like she was kicking something. And so I painted her in that way first, and I didn't like that. It didn't look right. So
But so you can change it. I mean,
you can change it, and you can change oil paint easily. If even if it gets dry, you can still go back and paint over it. And in the case of this girl with the cold wax, the cold wax is mixed into the paint.
Explain to me cold wax. I'm thinking, like candle wax, but it's not. Is that how does that? Explain the process to me.
It's really a very old medium. And it is wax. It has solvent in it.
Okay.
And you mix that in with the paint, and it gives it sort of a matte, instead of a shiny.
Okay.
It makes feel or look. It makes it more matte. And so you can put the cold wax on there, and if you don't like what you have, you can
scrape it off. Oh,
take a palette knife and scrape it off. If it's dry and won't scrape, you can put solvent on it and let it sit for a couple minutes and scrape it off. So it's a lot of fun. It's a whole lot of fun.
Oh, Pam. Well, I'm fascinated by that. Let's go to your next one, and because I think this one is totally different.
Totally different. And I chose this one for today because it is a plein air painting.
Yes.
I live in the country. I have lots of woods, and I have some painting friends that come out quite a bit, and we wander around down the road and look at what we see. And this particular spring day, look at the color. That's how it looked.
It glistens. It's just beautiful.
Yes. And this was done with a limited palette. And I don't normally take black out in my palette, but I've started using black.
Okay.
There's a color that Gamblin Paint makes called chromatic black. And it's fabulous because you can get dark real quick. But because it's chromatic, it's a mixture of color. So it's not a dead, flat black.
Oh, okay. So you can play with it.
So that painting was done 100% on location, and probably spent an hour and a half out there on it. Yeah. And I was real happy with it. I thought it was fresh. It was loose and abstracted.
Yes.
I did tone the canvas. before I went out, I toned it with an acrylic paint that I mix up in a spray bottle and spray it on, and that was underpainted with purple.
Oh,
Which
interesting.
Yeah, it really, but the complementary colors played off of it really well. And so that was done with an underpainting or just a layer, just a toning of the canvas with
How
acrylic.
large a canvas is that?
I think that one's a 12 by 16.
Okay, so you just go out with put it on a tripod and just go.
Yes.
Wow.
They don't always turn out. I think I said that.
Well, it's amazing to me that, in this particular case, you know exactly what it is that you want to paint.
Exactly.
So you're out there, as opposed to the lady who just evolved, right? Yeah. So totally different styles, Pam.
Yes.
Which is your favorite, or do you have a favorite?
Oh goodness! At the moment, it's probably the figure.
Really?
A little bit more planned. Well, not planned, but in the studio because it's air conditioned.
Yes, yes. This time of the year, it makes much more pleasant to paint than outside. Yeah.
But I will say that my studio work is making my plein air work better.
Oh.
And vice versa. When I spend too much time in the studio, I tend to get tight. Mm. And I don't want to be tight. I want it to be spontaneous.
Yes.
And I love a happy accident in a painting. And things tend to get too precious. Oh, that looks so good. I can't touch that. And then when I'm painting outside, you don't have time to think about all that.
Right.
The light changes, and I had to learn not to chase the light. I mean, the light may be on a tree, and then in 15 minutes, the light's not on that tree anymore. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to
be fast.
Yeah, fast and remember.
Uh-huh.
And so get the big shapes in. And so I think they sort of inform each other. This time of the year, I probably do lean toward the studio more, but when it cools off a little bit, I'll be back outside.
You'll be outside.
Yes.
Well, let's look at the next one, which is a figure that I guess she is amazing. I can't wait for you to tell me about her, and if she evolved like the other one, or was she somebody you really planned to paint?
I plan to paint her.
Okay.
This painting is called Lady Mystic. And I met this lady at a plein air festival in Bisbee, Arizona.
Oh.
And she was doing, if you haven't ever been to Bisbee, you should go. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
But she was doing haunted house tours. and so we were in a restaurant at the end of one of the days. We painted outside every day there. It was just fabulous. And she came into the restaurant, and I asked her if she minded if I took pictures of her. And she, she was a ham. She said, sure. And she just posed. And so.
And she was dressed all colorful like
yes,
that. Oh.
Yes. I did embellish a little bit. But but anyway, there was a show that I had been asked to be in. And it was a Halloween show. And so I couldn't think of what I wanted to do for that show, and I pulled up her picture, and I thought that would be so much fun. Now the raven in her hands and the bat flying in weren't, of course, there.
That was your imagination, but
right.
Such an interesting subject,
right?
And
she was so amazing to look at, in that painting, if you get a chance to look at it, look at her eyes. She had these glassy, big eyes. They were green and glassy, and I thought, how am I ever going to? But they worked. And the other good, fun thing about that particular painting, she had on fishnet stockings. And I thought, I really want fishnet stockings. Well, how do you do that? You go back, no, I got I had a pot holder a silicone pot holder, and I just smeared black paint on it and painted her stockings with that.
Smart of you to do that, because it would be so hard to get good.
Because you couldn't draw them all in. It would be
No.
all tight
Yeah.
and knotty and not.
Exactly. God was very clever,
Yeah,
very clever.
thank
Did she
you.
ever see that painting?
She hasn't.
No.
She hasn't seen it because the pandemic closed everything
yeah,
down. I if I knew who she was and how to get
Yeah,
in touch
yeah.
with her, I would send her a picture.
Picture.
Of it.
Well, Pam, that is, it's just so interesting to see how versatile you are and how you can go from, totally different style, look in the way the paintings come out, the plein air and the subject matter, but in each case, beautifully executed and colors are great. So it is really a delight to be able to see those. And tell me now, let's wrap it up. How did you actually get to the Conroe Art League? And let's talk about that a little
Well,
bit.
as I said, I grew up in Conroe,
Yeah.
and my mother was really good friends with one of, I think, the founding members. And I brought this to show everybody.
I love.
This was done by a lady named Elaine Triplett, and she played golf with my mom. And years ago, well, she gave me this painting. I think it was about sometime in the 70s. And Mother took me to see an exhibit of Elaine's work, and the Conroe Art League had an exhibit.
Okay.
And it was, if I remember correctly, it was at the Methodist Church, which is not, it was in an annex building there. And I went in there, and I had never seen anything like that. And I told Mother, I said, I want to paint. I want to paint like that. I want to be a part of something like this. And so over time, I joined the Conroe Art League probably, not too long after I got married, but I, again, I was living in Huntsville and had a hard time getting to things, and was really, really busy with work and my family. So I've kind of been in and out. Now I'm giving more and more responsibility away at the office, and I'm painting a lot more. So I'm getting to be a little more active. But I love this painting. And it's called, she was a plein air painter, and this is called A Soft Summer Day in Texas. I know Elaine is no longer living, but I just think this is just really, one of the funny things, this canvas was ordered from Sears.
Oh boy, that takes you back to
So I just thought this was so sweet. And when she gave it to me, I held on to it, and so.
And it ties you to the Conroe
It
Art
does,
League.
it does.
What
And
a sweet memory.
The Art League is just an amazing group here.
It
My
is.
goodness.
We are so fortunate to have it in our
yes.
community. We have such talented artists and
Wonderful people.
Wonderful people who are so passionate about
Yes.
it and really make it such a special place. So, Pam, I thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing your beautiful works with us. We are so fortunate to have gifted artists like you as part of the Conroe Art League. And I also would like to thank our listeners for being so important to watching and supporting Cal Live. Please visit the Conroe Art League and the gallery and see the beautiful things that we have there. And remember that together we can create, appreciate, and learn.